Hello, my name is Raj Chacko, and this is the third video in a series of trainings for account managers with regards to current data center solutions. On this topic, we will be talking about cloud and hybrid cloud solutions. So again, we'll have four key elements to the discussion. One would be business problems, second would be competitive landscape, third would be how Cisco address a problem, and fourth would be some key takeaways and call to action, etc. So problem number one, again, as we talked about in the past two videos, the most important element inside the data center for any customer is the application. A lot of customers gravitate towards a public cloud or a cloud-like design to make sure that the applications can be deployed faster. That's it, right? I cannot use my physical infrastructure and I cannot rely upon my IT team because the IT team takes too long for me to deploy my applications or set up a new application. So how do you solve that problem? Hey, you know what? Maybe I should have a cloud-like architecture. Maybe I should use a public cloud for that, Amazon, Azure, etc. The second business problem is around the capital expenditure into the infrastructure itself. The question becomes, why am I paying so much capital investment to buy or build this giant data center where I can use a pay-as-I-go kind of a model in the public cloud? So the capital expenditure and monetization of investment. Becomes a problem. The third issue that I can think of is in terms of digitization. How do I make sure that my company is ready for the digital era? How do I make sure that the processes in place are ready for a digital era? Now, going back to problem one, we mentioned that this business problem for hyperconverged was obviously the storage. We use storage as a problem descriptor. On the SDN piece, we mentioned that the network is a problem. And when it comes to the cloud and hybrid cloud piece, I'm going to highlight the third problem, which is the infrastructure, which is physical or virtual. From a physical compute standpoint or physical server standpoint, I'm not able to deploy my applications the way I want it. So guess what? I'm going to go to the public cloud or use some sort of a external cloud that I can leverage so I can gain some agility. All right. Now that we've described the problems, who are the key players out there from a competitive standpoint? Most of the players we already know. Amazon is probably our biggest competitor, or anybody's biggest competitor in terms of the applications moving into a cloud, into a public cloud where the revenue stream is completely gobbled up by Amazon. There are other competitors, Microsoft, Google, VMware has a small cloud which is declining, by the way. And there's a bunch of small other companies too, Rackspace, SunGuard, etc., which have some niche solutions, for example, DR, or a specific application that they might host better than the others. So what is Cisco's strategy? What are we doing here in this space, right? Well, we believe fundamentally that not all applications are conducive for the public cloud. So every customer will have to have a hybrid cloud strategy, right? There is this bell curve that you guys might have seen where some customers are at the beginning of the bell curve where they are just getting into the public cloud space. Most of the infrastructure is hosted by themselves in a colo or their own data centers. On the other end of the bell curve, there are companies that are cloud native, right? Companies that have no infrastructure at all, including their phone systems. It's all running on a public cloud. Majority of the customers fall into this large middle ground of this bell curve where they are having some application in the public cloud and some in the private, IT-owned space. So, as you can imagine, what we are able to provide as a cloud solution is the ability for our customers to manage, deploy, and model applications. Again, this is going to be a pretty common theme, right? Model applications using a software that we acquired called Clicker, or now which is termed as Datacenter. So what Clicker does, or what Datacenter does, is that it allows our customers to, put together an application based on a policy again, stitch an application together. It could have multiple tiers. Like I said earlier, it could have a web tier, a database tier, and it could have an app tier or multiple tiers. I'm just drawing 3 tiers here. Once you model this application based on this policy, I have created what I call an application profile. Now I have the ability for this application could be installed and pushed into or deployed into any cloud of my choice. Today, Clicker provides 15 or so cloud providers, public and private cloud providers. So I can send these applications to Amazon, Azure, Google, etc. So here's my list of public cloud providers. I can also, by the way, using the same model of this application profile, so my application itself can be pushed into a private cloud, which means vCenter or Hyper-V or KVM or Metapod. Now this is important, guys. The Metapod piece, remember, the second piece was how do I get cloud-like economics? How do I make sure that I can get a return on investment similar to what a public cloud provider is able to get me? Metapod. Talk about Metapod to your customers. We have the ability to literally bring an Amazon service or Amazon-like environment into your data center. So here's again our ability here again is our ability to provide applications, the agility to be mobile. So I can move my applications between a public cloud and a private cloud. I can host part of my application on a public cloud and the other part on a private cloud, etc. And once we acquired Clicker, we also integrated it with physical infrastructure. So ACI. So what I can do now is that when I create these tiers, when I build this policy, that same policy can get deployed into my ACI fabric. And remember those endpoint groups that I was mentioning? Those EPGs will get created by Clicker and get deployed into an app ACI fabric. The one piece that I failed to mention here for this, with regards to the application Datacenter, is the automation piece. So some level of automation for this physical infrastructure is done with UCS Director. So what Clicker will do essentially is Clicker will communicate with UCS Director, and UCS Director will configure and manage the physical infrastructure. So there is the orchestrator. That essentially builds this entire stack together and makes sure that the application is literally seamless to all these different elements out there. So my call to action and some of the key takeaways is that when you talk to a customer, one thing to think about is ask them, hey, how are your applications being deployed in the public cloud? Do you have a hybrid cloud solution out there? Do you have a cloud strategy, right? We are able to bring a solution which can allow your application to be modeled, deployed, and configured, lifecycle managed across the stack, across the public cloud, private cloud stack. We also have the ability to orchestrate among all your different components. So if you have storage, if you have, let's say, if you have a storage array, if you have a hyper-converged array, or if you have a LAN or a SAN switch, all those things can be managed by UCS Director in terms of an orchestrator. The applications function autonomously, agnostic of what elements are in play inside the data center. With that, I will wrap up this three-part series training. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me or Mark Malillo. By the way, as you guys know, right after these videos, there will be a set of live trainings that Mark and I will do. And I would encourage for you guys to come join and ask questions. We can whiteboard some of this stuff again. I would really like you to be able to go to a customer and ask the relevant questions based on those business problems and bring us into the next meeting. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good day.